Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock practicing necromancer. And this afternoon, um, I wanted to drop some gnosis on you. This is something that I have been teaching my son, and it really is paying off for him. And it's not just about him, because I know that he has been curious about what I do as a practicing necromancer, a practicing warlock, you know, and I keep him at arm's length on that aspect because he's only 8 years old. He's not mentally or physically inclined at that stage to be, you know, taught about necromancy or occultism in general. You know, I don't really want him to walk the path that I walk, and I definitely don't want him walking the path that his mother walked as a Christian. So you got that dual, religious conflict there, but it's more of the fact that I want him to walk his own path. You know, if it makes him happy, cool. Okay. Now, what do I mean by tilling? Mind your own dirt. Okay. When you have ethics, traditions in your life, be it family traditions, the values and everything that make you who you are, you're not going to break or corrupt those morals, those traditions or those values for money, power, or wealth. You're not going to corrupt them just because to fit in with somebody. And if you give your word to somebody, then you need to follow through. These are things that I try to teach my son. You know, and it really is paying off for him because more and more people are taking him at his word, even at as an 8-year old. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I want you to think about where you are in your life right now. From a spiritualist perspective to a religious perspective, be it an occultist perspective. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, or you're a Satanist. It doesn't matter if you're a necromancer or a voodoo zant. Okay? I want you to think about what kind of example that you want to be for your community, not just for your family. In my youth, I was haughty, I was arrogant, I waged war just for shits and giggles. I didn't give a shit who I hurt. Okay? But I want you to think about this. When your parents look at you and say, if you do this, there's going to be consequences down the road. I want you to think about that. Think about all the injuries that you sustained that you were warned not to do for stupid ass stunts. But now you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, and you're feeling it. Okay, these are values that are implemented, from your parents to their children. And then you look at when you give your word and you lead by example. Okay. One of the things that I always did when I was on the job, and I'm going to speak to this from a former member of Dunkin' Donuts as a opening shift lead. You teach the people under you how to do their jobs and improvise when supplies run low or they run out. How do you fix, a creamer, or, how do you get a coffee grinder to work? How do you calibrate the machines? How do you do the red book? That's supposed to be done daily. Every other day you're supposed to be doing the cream machine, and there's certain procedures that you got to follow, right? Well, nowadays they give you a 2 minute, like a minute video and expect you to be an expert. They don't really teach. You're caught between your immediate management and upper management that is basically at conflict of dual hypocrisy, if you will. So they don't really teach the underlings or the employees about their job. They just keep you guessing, and you can't say anything because you have to sit there and take the shit, earn your stripes. And I was thinking about my scars, because I got scars all over my body from injuries and battles and stuff. This last one was actually from a dog. And yeah, I'm still feeling it today, and it's been a few months. But especially when it's cold. But I want you to think about this. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? If you have followers as a bishop, let's say an archbishop, you work for the demons, you work for Gehenna, okay? Or you are a practitioner within Palo Mayombe or Santeria, okay? How do you earn your stripes if you don't have a good foundation under you? Okay, you earn your stripes, right? Now, I want you to think about this. If you are a man or a woman of your word, you say you're going to do something and you do it, okay? This is something that I constantly have to apply, not only to my own son, but also to the dogs. Yes, sadly, I got to do this with the dogs. I take my stuff out to the car. I tell them, go look at the window. You'll watch me. Okay, I will be right back. I promise. And sure enough, they'll go to the window. They'll see me by my car, and then they'll watch me walking back towards the door, and they will meet me right by the door. So happy to see me, happy that I came back, and it builds that level of trust. The same thing occurs when you set values and traditions in your life. You have to set, limitations. You got to set boundaries, yes, but you got to be responsible. And one of the things that has been brought up on numerous occasions is pacts. Okay? If you type in how to make a blood pact with a demon, you're going to come up against videos all over YouTube, mostly from former Satanists, former Brua, or Bruos, former voodoo zonts, former witches, former warlocks, and all this stuff that they've broken their word, they've broken their oath. And, there was how should I say this? There was a comment that was made, and right off the bat, I can't remember where I heard it, but recently I found out that a good time or big time practitioner was recently converted to Christianity. Okay? I've got nothing wrong with or against Christians, the faith. I got the problem with the people that operate it. Okay? They are corrupt, and she tends to break, they tend to break their word and everything, So, I want you to think about this. If you make a pact with a demon, you make oaths, and you work with those spirits. It doesn't matter if it's a fallen angel. It doesn't matter if it's the Loa, the Orisha, the Jinn, the Devi, the demons themselves. Okay? If you make a deal with them, that deal is a two-way door. You do things for them, and they do things for you. Okay? They are not responsible for the choices that you make. Just like you're not responsible for the choices that they make. Okay? Now, I want you to think about it this way. Let's say, for an example, you make a blood pact. You begin building a reputation as a occultist. You become flamboyant. Okay? And by flamboyant, I mean doing all these big time rituals online. You do a lot of showboating. You sell product, and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you abandon your oath. You abandon your tradition. Okay? And then you go to, say, Christianity. I want you to think about your magic. I want you to think about your sorcery. Anything you've done up until this point, you have successfully canceled that out. Okay? You have canceled that out. Because now it would be like you becoming a, let's say, for an example, a police officer or a military personnel. Okay? Let's do it from these two perspectives. First of all, if you become a cop, okay, and say Los Angeles or Miami Metro, or say, let's go with Portland PD or state police or whatever, and then all of a sudden you worked your way up to like a training officer or a sergeant, okay, within that police force, and then all of a sudden you decide, you know what, I want to move to a different city. I want to move to a different state with my family. What do you think's going to happen? You're definitely not going to be a sergeant anymore. You're not going to be paid that same payment per hour. No, you're going to have to start all over again. Even if you work your way up in the military to an S7, or an E7, you start as a private like everybody else, and you work your way up, and then all of a sudden you retire. Let's say, for an example, you have a 4-year service plan, okay, where you've committed to being in the Army or the Navy for, say, 4 to 10 years, okay? Your time gets up. You have that opportunity to renew. Okay? You have that opportunity to renew your oath of service. But instead, you get out. You choose an honorable discharge. Okay? Then all of a sudden, one of two things happens. One, let's say, for an example, you find out your wife, girlfriend, husband, boyfriend, whatever, is cheating on you. They've moved on with their life. So you try to get back into the service because it's all you've known. It's the only skills that you have in the world is what you've learned in the armed services. But instead of going back in as an E7 or a LT, an LT1 or whatever, you have to start all over again. Okay? Or two, you are recalled. Okay? You are recalled, which basically means you've been reactivated, which is a part of your contract when you work for the government. This is something that occurs to where you will go back in and continue your service. Yes. But you won't have that same level of trust because now you're working with a whole new team. You're working with a whole new squad, a whole new platoon. So now you've got to earn your stripes again. You've got to earn their trust. You've got to work and earn everything back that you had before. It is the exact same thing as making a deal with demons or any supernatural entity, folk entity, or or mythological being if you're a pagan, neo-pagan, Wicca, whatever. Even if you're working with your ancestors, the spirits of the dead, you build up that repertoire. You build up that level of trust. You build up your power. And then all of a sudden you piss it away because what? You got tired of living on the bottom? Think about tests and trials. If you don't have tests and trials, how are you going to grow? Is it their duty for you to learn? Is it their responsibility to figure out what's working in your life and what's not? And then for you to grow, to mature? No. That's on you. That's on you because you gave your word. You gave that oath. You chose to do that blood pact. You chose to align yourself with forces and become a part of something that's greater than you. You're no longer an individual. You're a member of a team. Okay? It would be like you going from being single into a marriage and then becoming a parent. You're no longer you. You have a family to look after. You have children to provide for. That's your responsibility to step up to that plate, right? It's the exact same thing when you're working with demons. It's the exact same thing when you are working with any number of spirits, entities, or supernatural beings. So to abandon your faith, to abandon your oath, and to go to a different tradition, you have to start all over again at the very bottom. That means you just gave up everything that you've had gotten, all the blessings, all the benefits you've had. You just pissed it all away. For what? Because somebody promised you something else? Something better? I'm just saying, think about that for just a moment. So, if you become a Catholic, you basically are guilty by association to any minister that has molested children. It doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Roman Catholic, Baptist, Apostolic, Pentecostal, even Jehovah's Witness. These are organizations that are classified as a cult for a reason. They are there to make money off you. You are the slave. You are the servant. You're not growing in benefiting your clientele. You're not benefiting and growing in your own life because now you do what the minister tells you to do. Now, all that power that you had is gone. You've broken your word. Your word is shit. So I want you to think about this because if you've done this once, you're going to do it again. Especially if you realize down the road, let's say 4, 5, 6 months down the road, you've gone from being a black magician to being a Catholic. This ain't benefiting me either. I think I should go back to being a ceremonial magician. Well, guess what? Now you break your pact with Jesus, Yahweh, whatever, and again, you start at the bottom. You see that cycle. This is the same thing that you see in fast food industries. This is the same thing that you see in the security business. This is the same thing that you see in corporate offices worldwide. Is people just don't get it that your word is your bond. You have to start by giving your word. You have to earn your stripes. This includes trials and errors. You're gonna fail. You're gonna lose sometimes. But it's how you pick yourself back up and grow that defines you as a man or a woman of your word. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that for just a moment. I want you to think about, what are you trying to do with your life and where are you going? Where do you want to go with this? I mean, when you think of the Philosopher's Stone, where do you want to end up? Do you want to transcend? Become a mage like, say, Jesus of Nazareth did as a practitioner of the ancient ways? Or do you want to be one of these Bokors, these Hungans, these traditional values type practitioners of folklore, family lineages, hereditary family lines? I want you to think about this. It doesn't matter if you're a Satanist. It doesn't matter if you're a Polero. It doesn't matter if you're a Brua or a Bruo. It doesn't matter if you're a necromancer. It doesn't matter if you are a shaman. You're going to be working with spirits. You're going to be working with alchemy. Self-mastery begins with yourself. Any tradition will teach you that. You have to have a firm foundation under you to build upon. You're not going to build a skyscraper on the foundation of a house. It's not going to support it. Think about your sorcery. Think about your magic. Think about what you're doing when you're building a business, working with spirits. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about where you want to go. How are you going to get there? Think of the very definition of apotheosis. It's about self-mastery, self-evolution, right? You have to master yourself before you can evolve into another, serpent, if you will, of yourself. Think about that. A serpent, when it gets to a certain time, a certain size, will shed its skin and become new. A caterpillar will shed its skin and become a butterfly. Wow. Amazing, right? Now think about you being a practitioner of the left-hand path or the right-hand path. That is on you. Are you going to sit there and step up to the plate and learn? Are you going to step up to the plate and do the work? Are you going to go through the trials, the hardships? Are you going to bleed for your tradition like you're going to bleed for your career? I mean, think about all you do on the job that you get shit for. And let's face it, being a man today, it's a thankless job. But it's there. This is one of the reasons I told the world to go fuck itself. I'm no longer part of that corruption. I'm no longer a part of that traditions of false power. When you realize that all that is a shell, it's an illusionist trick to keep you down, how are you going to rise? I used to fight just for the sheer pleasure of it as a Satanist, because I had a false standing there. I had a false perspective. Whoever challenged me, I would have knocked them down. Most of them would rather be my friend and my ally than my enemy, for a reason. I made that reputation. I was not a nice guy, and I'm still not a nice guy. But I don't make illusions or excuses for the way I lived my life. What I can tell you is that I am a man of honor. I say what I mean, and I say what's on my mind. More than that, as a practitioner of necromancy, the best decision I ever made, because I get to work more freely with the spirits and the entities. It fits me perfectly. I like it, the solitary of it. I don't mind being solitary. I don't mind being alone. In fact, I enjoy it. I can walk through the cemeteries with my dogs or just by myself and just pray to the beings that I work with them, call upon them, petition them to open doors for me. In return, I do something in return for them. It's that give and take. Your magic is the same way. Your career is the same way. You got that wheel constantly turning that you got to grease. But if you give all that up for a position of false power, false illusions, you're nothing more than a individual seeking validation. You're seeking popularity. You got these individuals out there that come to Satanists and to Wiccans and pagans and whatever, going, hey, how do I join the Illuminati so I can become rich and famous? You know, how do I join Satanism to be like you? Do you even know what Satanism is? Do you even know what the Illuminati was about? Especially back in the 15th, 16th century. Not this con artist, BS popularity types today. No. You don't know. Because you think it's a game. You're young. You haven't made it a lifestyle. You haven't embraced that world. You want to embrace it. You got to immerse yourself in the culture. You got to immerse yourself within the history, the rituals and the ceremonies. You got to work with the beings and forge those relationships. It's not just doing the work with alchemy, making powders, making elixirs, creating geomancy type practices. You know, the forbidden mancies, if you will. No, there's so much to it that you have to build upon. You have to go out there and research it. You have to go out there and learn it. You got to learn what deities are associated with what you want, where you want to take your practices. But if you're going to sit there and you're going to go, today I'm going to be like a fish on dry land and flip-flop back and forth between Christianity and the occult, the best advice that I was once given years ago was by a brewer down in South Tucson. And I spoke on this once or twice before over the last, 12, 13 years, is you're standing over a double-edged sword, and if you haven't made a decision and time runs out, you'll be split in two. The best advice I ever gotten in my life. About 8 years later, about 8 years ago, I ended up changing careers. I'm still a practitioner working with demons. I'm still working with my, spirits that I work with. I'm still forging all that stuff. I just freed myself from that limitation. I made it a lifestyle. I chose my path. I became a necromancer. And you know what? Best decision I ever made. The best decision I ever made. And not everybody can walk the path of being a Satanist or being in brujeria, Palo Mayombe, Santeria, Voodoo, or even shamanism. It's not for everybody. Because most people don't know what they want. Most people don't know where they're going in life. They don't have that goal. They don't have that firm foundation of traditions and values to build upon. I got lucky. I had several good teachers that put me on the right path. And you know what? I'm honored to have known them. Because not only do I have clients now that still come to me, but I've earned a reputation within the occult community as an educator. as a man that knows what he's doing. I'm constantly defining and redefining my practices. If that means going back to basics, I will do it. Every fucking time. I look at magic, I look at sorcery, I look at spiritualism like an onion. You master one level, you peel it away, and it reveals a whole new level to work with. Every fucking time. I'm a career student. Most of those like me that are out there, they're the same way. They've made these paths a lifestyle. This is who they are. They breathe it, they eat it, they walk it, they sleep it. They're willing to do what is necessary for that path, for that growth. But they keep their word. And you know what? I'm proud of my son for keeping his word. He's wanting to be like his dad, which is awesome. I commend that. But I also know that it's a phase for him. Sooner or later, he's going to turn and go, I want to forge a path of my own. And you know what? I'm going to be that dad that's going to sit there and go, as long as it makes you happy and you're responsible with it, live it up. And this is what I mean when I say, own your dirt. Own your dirt, because you are responsible for the dirt that you sling. You are responsible for the dirt that you're tilling, the ground that you till. I want you to think about that. It doesn't matter if you're going a career student in college. It doesn't matter if you're a baker or an accountant. It doesn't matter if you're a sales associate or a business owner. You're responsible. You're the only one who can take those chains, break them, and build upon a foundation that's benefiting you. But you got to start with your word, and you got to start with a good ground. Traditions and values. Plain and simple. Because that's how people are going to recognize you for who you are and what you're about. Galaxy Gaming, hello. Vavrines, hello. The one and only Kenneth. Have a good day, my friend. Same back to you. Thanks for jumping on here with me. Karo Uku. Did I pronounce that right? Hello? K9 Neck 9. Welcome to the channel. And Christopher Curtin J3H. Welcome to the channel. Exactly, they have. They've been around a very, very long time. So, but I got to get going. I got to go watch the dogs and my boy tonight. But I wanted to come under here and kind of just give my 2 cents on keeping your word, having traditions and values. Doesn't matter if it's game night, family night, or whatever. It's there. All right? Honor your word to honor your faith. Always back up what you preach with numerous sources and references, and always make yourself available to the public. Have a good day and a good night. Until next time, I'm out.